like to call to order the monthly meeting of the mayor and city council of the city of Taneytown for the month of February, and ask Councilman Vigliotti to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and for coming out tonight. All council members are present and accounted for. And thank our Mayor Pro Tem for filling in for me at the work session last Wednesday. I truly appreciate that. Allow me to attend the mayor's conference in Annapolis. Our first order of business is the approval of minutes for January the 6th and January 11th regular meetings. Anyone have a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll move to approve them.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in
I'd just
favor,
like to
say
say,
aye.
I'd like to thank Claire
Okay.
for making the corrections that we discussed back in November, and that she does a good job on that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I actually wrote out the corrections for her, and I was pleased to see them in the minutes, so thank you for that.
You say you have corrections for the November minutes?
No, I said that I was pleased with Claire's work on the minutes.
Okay. All right, anybody else have anything? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, so carried. Next, we have the introduction of, I guess the passage, I'm sorry. I'm on the right page here. Of Resolution 2016-19, water allocation for February 2016. Anyone care to make a motion to approve that
So moved.
resolution? Is there any discussion? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, so carried. Next, we have up for adoption ordinance 19-2016, the Downtown Revitalization Act Amendment 2. Anyone care to make a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And
Is
Mr.
there
Mayor?
any discussion?
Yes, can I ask the staff to give us a summary of the Downtown Revitalization Act Amendment 2? Can you just summarize that before we take a vote on it?
Well,
It's in here. I know it's in here, but I want the public to know what we're voting on. I can do the summary if you don't want to do it, but I'd rather the staff just summarize
Well,
what we're voting
our
on.
city manager's not with us tonight. He's ill. Clara, do you feel qualified to summarize that regulation? I don't think Clara would be able to do that.
But Diane,
The act was originally passed in 2011, and it's incentive for downtown businesses to improve their properties and receive tax incentives. The downtown committee wanted it amended to change the timeline that you would be able to apply for the incentives.
My understanding is.
And also, it's due to expire, I forget when, in
2020.
16. No,
Oh,
the
oh,
old
right
one.
now.
Right.
It's due to
16.
expire like sometime in 16.
Yes.
So in doing the amendment, we extended it out until 2020.
On page 2, it says the certified investment expenditures, which would be things that are submitted to the town. It says including only material cost should be $5,000. The minimum CIE, including materials and labor, is $10,000. So this would be an incentive if they provide, if my understanding is correct, a certified investment expenditure on uplift of and improvement of town properties up to $10,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's wonderful.
Wait, I'm sorry, repeat that, Donald?
I'm just reading from page 2. If you go on the second paragraph, it says, "The amount of the incentive property owner is entitled to receive shall be 10% of the certified investment expenditure made by the property owner on an eligible improvement. The minimum CIE, including only material costs, should be $5,000. The minimum CIE, including materials and labor, is $10,000.
Right. It sounded like you had said up to. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
that-
that,
that's minimum,
right,
that's
that
not
it's a
maximum.
minimum, not a maximum.
Okay, there you
Right.
go. That's a good point, Brad. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, so carried. Next, we have the campaign finance ordinance 2000-2016. And I understand there was some discussion from Wednesday night that we need to address. Is that correct?
That's right. I sent you a memo that outlined at least the 3 areas, not the 3 specific areas, but the 3 discussion areas that you had. And it also had a copy that you should have gotten that highlighted where they were in the ordinance. And so to deal with this, since some of them are interrelated, I suggested that you handle them in reverse order. Everything stems from the last section, at least our discussion, the last section of what is the exemption for self-funded candidates, okay? And there's 2 different things that are at play here. There's a dollar figure that if you spend and receive less than that dollar figure, you can file a waiver and be exempt. And the other exemption is that self-funded candidates do not have to use a bank account, a separate bank account. They can just write the checks themselves, checks or whatever themselves.
Jay, can you clarify something you just said? Because you said spend and receive less than.
Right.
But if they're self-funded, they're not receiving anything, correct?
The way this is that if they're self-funded, they're not receiving anything. That's correct.
Okay.
So self-funded is, the only reason I said that is they can receive, which is the next issue, money from their spouse,
Right.
which is unlimited.
Okay.
That's the loophole. So if they say they're spending less than $350, and that's what's in the ordinance now, and I know there's a debate on what that number should be, so we can use X if that makes it easier to move this forward. Less than X, they file an affidavit saying I'm spending less than X, and therefore I don't have to file the normal details.
Right.
So they don't have to take any money, which would be this less than $350, and put it into a separate bank account. So that's our first issue. It's complicated by the fact of our second issue, which is spouse candidates, and this is in a prior section, 18.9. Spouses of candidates are not subject to any limitation. They can give any amount to their spouse, and that money then is not reported through a campaign account. So that's a separate issue.
Jay, can I ask a question? And I hope I'm not interrupting.
ahead.
I had a thought over the weekend about this, about the discussion that we'd had Wednesday night, and I think certainly all of us are concerned about transparency in the elective process, and at the same time, Councilman Wentz made some effective arguments about transparency on Wednesday night, but then Councilman Zambetti and Councilman Frazier made some very good arguments about not overburdening the self-financing candidates. So I kind of had this thought, and Jay, maybe you can speak to this, where maybe what we could do is we could require the self-financing, everybody who's running for office, including the self-financing candidate, to open a specific campaign account, right? That would create a physical record of expenditures during the campaign. However, at the same time, we could also say that a self-financing candidate could only have to file, say, 3 forms, once at the beginning, once at the end, and once in the middle. And so if a situation arises where they have to account for their expenditures, they're able to go to a bank account statement and they have the evidence to demonstrate what it was that they spent. And I think that could also be applied to the spousal contributions, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that you're getting at the heart of a paper trail, which is what the issue is. And I guess it might be easier if we use an example. If I'm running and I want to spend my own money, I can spend as much as I want to spend. But if I spend more than $350, I got to follow this rule, okay? If I'm running and I spend less than $350, then I can use the exemption that we built into this rule. If I solicit money from other people, I can only get a certain amount from every person. It's $500 is the max contribution that a person can give me. And then all my money has to be run through a bank account. That's the first time. And then I have to file the forms that I normally need to file. So there's like 3 different ways this goes down. The complicated part is the spousal contributions, as we talked about, are probably out of joint accounts. So there's no way to say this is a spousal contribution. But if it's less than $350, it doesn't matter because you're only spending $350. If it's more than $350, you got to fill out the forms anyway. The problem is that you don't have to have it in a bank account if it's more than $350. And that's
It's more or less.
more. If the spouse, if I say, let's use that example, I'm going to spend more than $350. I'm going to self-fund.
Right.
There's no limit. My spouse can collect a bunch of money from other people and give it to me. No limit.
Right.
She can hand it to me and there's no record of that, of where it came from. It just came from the spouse. And it's not in a separate account, so there's no tracking of it.
Right.
So those 2 provisions together are what create the problem.
Jay, can I ask a question also? Is it true that the Maryland election law does not govern the municipal elections?
Right, the Maryland election law doesn't
So
govern.
is there any federal guidelines that govern the municipal elections? Or you-
There's always federal guidelines, but as far as campaign finance, there's none.
So on the first page of the ordinance that was put before us, it says this, that a new section of the code of Taneytown would have to be added to Chapter 18, Campaign Finance. So this is a new proposal to enact the new portion of the Taneytown Code.
That's correct.
It's not an amendment of an old code,
No.
but it's a brand new.
It's a new section into this.
I read through the Taneytown record, trying to find information about how we inform the public about the fact that we're enacting a new Taneytown Code, and as I go through this, I can't find any information that we've warned the people we're gonna enact the Campaign Finance Code. There's no announcements that we're gonna discuss that at recent meetings or public information that we're doing a new thing to regulate campaign finance in time. What sort of onus is upon the town to let the town know that the town is moving forward with a new code to regulate elections?
They post it on the agenda. The agenda gets posted in the normal spot on the website, and that's it.
It was in the newspaper.
Right, I mean, whatever the public picks up on the newspaper, but the onus on the town is to put it on the agenda and deal with it at an open meeting.
I have also mentioned it in my monthly column and on the video presentation, so that's another.
It's no different than the one before it, where we're enacting a downtown credit. It gets done the same way.
Is it appropriate to make a motion now to increase the $350 limit to $1,000, which I've been proposing since the beginning of discussing this Gaithersburg boilerplate that came to us a couple months ago?
It depends on how you want to deal with it, if you want to deal with each part, but that's where we should probably start, is at
I made
the
the
limit.
point that you cannot reach the voters of Taneytown with $350. You can't say almost anything for that amount. If you buy a single postage stamp, it would be almost $1,200 to talk to every Republican. It would be almost $900 to talk to every independent. It would be almost about $700 through a direct letter, one letter, to talk to every voter. So I think the $350, when I filed for House of Delegates in 1994, the exemption was $300. So the $350, I don't know where that came from, but it's not the right number. A person ought to be able to come and run for office and not be able to go through the multiple requirements of reporting if they spend less than about $1,000, because it's freedom of speech and you have to be able to do that. So I would move that we increase the number in this draft from $350 to $1,000. I think you don't want to build a high wall to file for office. You want to make people easy so they can run for office. And I'd make a motion to that effect. I've been saying that now for 3 months, that I want to raise that number to about $1,000 because of the cost of buying anything, signs or
Would
postage stamps.
anyone care to make a second to raise the limit to $1,000 from $350? Hearing nothing, the motion dies as a lack of second. Does anyone else care to make a motion to increase the limit from $350 to another number?
I make a motion that we table this for another month. There's more information that we need to get, I
I
think.
have 16 questions that I'd like to ask about this ordinance that I've typed out because of the cold, chilling effect it is on being able to convince people to run for public office.
Personally, I feel it's just the opposite of that. Okay?
Yeah, and that's
the
actually
reason-
true, Don.
The reason I propose this is from what I saw in the last 2 elections, where people spent money that was obviously not theirs, that was donated. And that there were flyers donated, there were signs donated, stuff like that. Before, we didn't have that. That's why I proposed that we need a Campaign Finance Act, because we have to put some control on organizations now trying to dictate who's running in the city of Taneytown. Because some individual that's trying to do this because they want to do it and does not want the support of any organization because they don't want to be beholden to them, can't do it. If they know they're going to be competing with people putting out robocalls, renting facilities, to hold meetings, to get donated flyers, and that type of thing.
See, the
They
whole,
can't compete with that.
my entire argument on Wednesday is this. This has nothing to do with controls of the city, in my opinion. This is transparency. If you want transparency here, you need to have it here as well. And that comes down to people need to report where the money came from, what they spent it on. Did someone buy them their way into office?
I agree with that.
Which is why I'm saying that number should be 0. Everything should be reported. That's true transparency. And if you want to go out and accuse other people in the city of not being transparent, well, this is a smack in the face, because that's what this is aiming to do.
I didn't accuse anybody of anything. Some things that concern me, Mr. Mayor, if I might address them. Just this new section of the code is 18.2. It says here, it sets up a requirement to do multiple reporting, and Joe brought this up in his first comment, which I totally agree with. It says, under the current wording of this, it says the first report of the candidate in election to be filed with the Ethics Commission is on or before the last day to be filed for the office. Now, when I filed to run in May of 2015, I had to fill out an ethics form when I came to the town office. It says the second report filed with the Ethics Commission is due 29 days before the election. The third report is due 15 days before the election. The fourth report is due 8 days before the election. The next report is due by every candidate, whether elected or not, on the last day of the month following the day of the election. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Ethics Commission reports during a 29-day election cycle from the date of filing. Or I'm not certain, but the 29th day might be a little bit farther than that. But that would be something that would have to come out. If you want to campaign for office, you don't have to be all your time filling out Ethics Commission reports. I think, like you said, did you say 3? I think you said 3 reports. What? Can you say that again?
A suggestion of 3, one at the beginning, one in the middle, one at the end, but then
That's
having
about where
the
I
separate
am.
campaign account would create a record of expenditures so that
Correct.
if, right.
Yeah, I think, say it again for us, because I think that's exactly how I was feeling, that that's really quite a burden. Don't you agree? Can you say that again, the way you said it?
So you think it's a burden to have to report everything, but it's not a burden to open a separate checking account?
No, I was just talking about the number. I'm just talking about, my fear is that you would enact this. I'm glad that you made a motion to table it, because there's a lot of other issues, but this is 29 days, 15 days, 8 days, and then again, a month after. That's a lot. That's a lot of paperwork. It was many pages, and that you held up, Jay. I think the summary and talked about mistakes that were made on that. So I would call the question that we table this. I think that's more than enough reason to discuss making some changes in the draft. And if you want to, I provide some of my questions to Jay. That maybe he can work it up for a later meeting.
Well, we have a motion to table. I don't think we have a second.
We did
yet.
not, no.
Is there a
I
second?
seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
No doubt.
Is there any further discussion on tabling this for another month? And I'm not sure what we're gonna accomplish by doing that.
Well, there's really no hurry, so we might as well get it right. We got until probably January or December.
All right.
So let's make sure we all agree and iron out the kinks and get it done the way we want to get it done.
All right, then it's been moved and seconded to table this month, the campaign finance reform for another month. Is all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
So when do you want to talk about this?
Thank you.
You want, can I have a meeting with you with my 16 questions?
I mean, we can do that, or you can email them to me, or we can put it on the
Well,
longest
we
day.
have the
The
retreat.
Right.
That's the
Well,
longest
No,
day,
I
like
don't put it on
D-Day.
the retreat agenda. That's gonna be
Well,
full of
this is an important item. There's some things on the retreat agenda that could be
Moved.
moved if we have to. To me, the ability to allow citizens to run as independent candidates for service of the city of Taneytown is vitally important. And without this, it won't happen. It's just like it's been said, the special interest will take over, and never again will a normal citizen be able to hold a council position.
Exactly.
So I think we need to get it taken care of.
That's why I think at the retreat, we have more time.
Right. I mean, this is a lengthy
Right.
topic. The retreat is the right place to do that.
Because there, we can stay all day if we have to.
Right. I have no problem with that.
Nobody gets concerned about
Who caters that?
leaving at night.
Sleeping
Who
bags,
caters?
right?
Well,
You bring your bag lunch.
maybe, country kitchen.
All right, well, let's make it a goal to have this thing resolved during our retreat time.
Okay.
So
Great.
then we'll be ready to present this again in March. All right,
I would like a list of his questions ahead of time.
No, I took some time to type through. Thank you very much for your consideration.
our city manager is not here, but is there any questions on his report or the departmental reports since last Wednesday?
Nope.
All right, Jay, what do we have for our legal report tonight?
Just, there's no new update since Wednesday. We talked to you about the Ethics Commission, and the only thing that, aside from my report, which you all heard, they want you to, at the beginning of a meeting, ask and state that there's no conflict of interest with anything on the agenda. So the way I thought we would do that, because until it becomes routine, is that I could just have a little questionnaire that I could give the mayor. He could have it at his seat in front of him, and when we get to the appropriate point, maybe after the approval of the minutes, he'll say something like, does any council member have any concerns about any conflicts of interest on any of the items on this agenda?
Well, Attorney Gullo, you said that the.
Why has this been brought up?
You weren't here for
Yeah.
Wednesday. The Ethics Commission. So I'll go over it again, since you weren't here Wednesday. The Ethics Commission met and reviewed the forms. They had 4 areas that they wanted addressed. The first is they're going to have administrative review of the ethics forms, meaning that when they're submitted by employees and elected officials and appointed officials, they're going to be reviewed for completeness before a meeting is scheduled with the Ethics Commission. They figure that'll expedite it and make it simpler. The second thing is they're really focusing on transparency, and they want, instead of these forms are yearly forms done in retrospective, meaning the ones you file now will be for last year, they would like quarterly updates. And there'll be a form that you'll fill out that'll be handed out to everyone who's required that says, this is my form and there are no changes that need to be made. And if there are changes, then you file one. That is currently required under under our law, which is dictated by state law, and nobody files any updated forms all year long. And they find that odd, since 30 or 40 people have to fill out these forms and there's no changes at all during the year. So they figure quarterly, this will be the reminder. So that was number 2. The third is what I just talked about. They wanted a meeting disclosure, and this was Pastor Ostendorf's idea, that he said that there are concerns that, yes, while you file these every year, the people in the audience don't really get to understand, was there any concerns or conflicts with the stuff that's on the agenda? You all have a personal obligation to know the ethics ordinance and not vote or disclose any concerns or conflicts you have. But they thought for transparency purposes, if you've positively stated that at every meeting, that gets the public to know that at least that you're meeting that, or at least thinking about that obligation. So that's what I was talking about earlier, that there be a statement that you would read basically saying, does anybody believe they have any concerns or conflicts with anything on the agenda? And then somebody could say, yeah, I do, and we could talk about what it is and how they would disclose it. That's very unusual that it would happen, but if it becomes routine, people like that. And then the fourth area that they wanted to address dealt with the interplay between the Board of Elections and the Ethics Board, and how the forms for candidates gets reviewed and how they get certified. And we had quite a discussion on Wednesday of that. The nomenclature that I used on Wednesday was a candidate is filed and a candidate is certified candidate. Because as you know, when you file, you all have done this, you have to fill out these ethics forms when you file. And if you don't fill them out correctly, then if you take the draconian view, on the end of the last day of filing, if they're not filled out correctly, you're not a candidate. And that's not the way we operate. The ethics board reviewed it and said, hey, you need to put a little bit more information, or you need a check mark here, you need a check mark there. So there needs to be an opportunity for the ethics board to say to a candidate, come fix this, and have a time period to do that. And if they fix it, there's no problem. If they say, look, I'm not gonna fix it, there needs to be some penalty for that as well. So that's why they're talking about a certification period where the last day to file is here, and then there's a period of time for the ethics board to review the forms so that they can say, yes, everybody has complied with this provision. So those are the four areas. The first three are easy, and the fourth one is going to require ordinances to change, and that's where Councilman Zambetti has said that we really have till September to try to get this all together. This has to work in concert with the one you just tabled, because if you're going to expand the time period for filing and a review, you have to adjust the filing deadlines for campaign finance, because those will be triggered to that as well. So we got to have it all work together.
Can I make a request? I'd like to, in the packet next month, to have copies of the revised forms that they've looked at and worked out. Are they fleshed out and finished?
They're not finished, and
Or are they, can we see them in draft form next month?
they will be distributed once the Ethics Commission, they won't be to you all, they won't be in your package, they'll be to each of you to fill out. And their goal was to have them by the end of the month. So by the end of February, you will then have these forms required to fill them out and return them by the end of March.
Yeah, I could never vote for a 5 requirements to file a form without actually seeing the form.
Well, we
You don't get to
we
vote.
don't confirm. It's up to them.
It's there.
They decided this is the way the forms are, this is the way
We,
it's
we don't
I could
approve
vote
their
against
forms.
this ordinance. I don't know that we need it.
There's
I-
no ordinance pending.
Oh, we just tabled an ordinance.
That's
What do you
not the
mean?
same
Okay,
forms.
fine.
Those aren't,
Right,
No,
right,
I'd
that's
like
our
to see
business.
the forms that this ordinance talks about.
That's
which
different.
ordinance?
Look at this. It
That's
says here,
different.
let me read it to you.
That's
My
different.
goodness. It's not different.
Councilman, this is two different issues you're bringing up here.
No, that's not right. Let me read it to you right here. It's right here. Page 2 of the ordinance we just tabled, it says, "The first report of the candidate on the election board shall be filed with the Ethics Commission on or before the last day of filing for election." Now, that's a form I'd like to see.
Those are
The
candidates.
No,
second
no, Don,
report
you're-
is filed with the Ethics Commission, is 29 days before the election. These reports, I don't have copies of them in my
Don,
form.
Right.
And they never vote on something, enacting a form to be filed without looking at that form.
Yeah,
Wait,
those
Don.
forms will be provided to you. You've tabled that. We
But-
moved on to a different subject. Now we're talking
Right,
about the
we-
financial disclosure statements.
We are required by state law to file a financial disclosure form each year, and that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I know the staff does the same thing.
Whether we're elected,
All the staff does.
but
Right.
while we're in
And that-
office.
Those are the forms that I'm holding up. These are the ones I'm talking about under this
This
report.
form that you're asking us to enact multiple filings during the election cycle, I don't have copies of that.
Right,
Well-
and, because we've moved past that. We are gonna have copies of that.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to see
But we've
that
moved,
next month.
right,
And-
but we've moved past
We've
that.
tabled that, we've tabled that.
And technically, you all do have copies of that. It was provided last August when this
Right.
first went out. So you
Yes, it
do
was.
have a copy of those forms,
Last August is August of 2015.
15, yes.
when this was initially done. However, those forms will change depending on what you do with the ordinance. So that's campaign finance, and that's why I think we should start using the exact, I talked about this on Wednesday. When we're talking about campaign finance, you need to use the word campaign finance forms. And when we're talking about the ethics disclosure ones, these are financial disclosure forms. Okay, and candidates have to do both, but this is the one, the
No,
Ethics
it's
Commission.
Quite a burden.
So the Ethics Commission has decided that these forms are going to change. They're going to go to you sometime this month when they approve them, and then you'll fill them out and have a month to do it.
Right.
They're like the ones you filled out before. They're not going to change except in the order and the way they present themselves.
Okay. What else for Jay? All right, let's move into unfinished business. There was a discussion about the zoning area for the cannabis.
And there's no action to be taken on that.
No action for tonight on that?
Correct.
Very good. One item under unfinished business that I just want to mention. You recall that in January, the Community Media Center was before us and asked for, requested that we give them a 90-day extension before we approve the cable contract between they and Comcast, Carroll Regulatory Commission and Comcast. And there's been a whole lot of discussion going on between then and now, between me and the county and the Cable Regulatory Commission, and whether when we would be ready to approve this agreement. And I decided not to put it on the agenda this month, simply to wait until March in case any other issues would surface that we are not aware. I've thoroughly examined the document, don't see any major problems with it. There's a few things I don't like about it, but there's not really a willingness or an appetite to reopen the negotiations. So I probably will recommend that we approve this in March. I got a letter from the Community Media Center today basically saying the same thing, and that their greatest hope is that they get an ex officio position on this board for future negotiations, which is probably I think that'll satisfy their issues, but they're in negotiation with that. That's not our decision to make. But anyway, I just want to let you know that the topic will be back before us in March, and I anticipate I would certainly recommend that we approve it as it stands, unless something should surface between now and then. Mount Airy voted last night or last week to hold this for another 30 days, and I think that's probably prudent on our part too. So that's just simply an update on that. Is there any other unfinished business? Let's move into new business. Monthly financial report. Anyone have any questions on that? Anyone care to make a motion to approve the monthly financial report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, so carry. Next, we have the accounts payable report. Anyone care to make a motion to approve the accounts payable?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple questions about it. Can I address them at this time, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
On page 1 of the accounts payable, it says that the KTBS payroll, total net liability for the period 12/25, that's Christmas Day, to the end of January, was $47,967. That must be payroll withholdings and total liability, $70,000, including the tax liability, for $70,065.75. So is that's the withholding tax that's filed? And what is KTBS payroll? Why does it say that? Do we hire a company to do our payroll for us?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the name of the company, KTBS?
Yes.
Okay, that's a big check. They got a check for $70,000 to do our payroll withholdings. Okay,
No, that's incorrect.
is that correct?
No, that's incorrect.
What does it say? It
They-
says
they did not-
Total net payroll liabilities period to Christmas
That
Day.
is the payroll.
Right.
That's the total
Right,
amount of
we
payroll.
pay them money, which then they put out in payroll checks and in taxes.
So when our employees get a check, it's from this company. It's done by this company or it's from this company?
Yes, that's the same one you get your check from.
It's processed by them.
Okay.
But
It's not the tax.
This
li-
is the total,
Well, and-
total amount
Okay,
of
47,000
payroll
is the
liability for
payroll,
that month.
actual net payroll, and 22,098.73 is the payroll tax.
Are the taxes that were
Okay.
paid, yes.
I just thought that's what I saw. Here, and I have another question, if it's not too lengthy to go through it. on one of the
Another
other
question you had?
I wanted to ask, on page 4 of the payroll, of the accounts payable, this is every transaction from the town. It says, Bay restoration fee, fourth quarter, $41,313.43. Where is the Bay restoration fee collected? Is it collected on the water bill?
Yes.
It's collected on the tax, on the
Yes,
on the
it's
property tax?
It's $15 each quarter on each water sewer bill.
It's
So
on
the
your water
period
and
for
sewer
the
bill.
fourth quarter, we gave the Bay Restoration, Comptroller Maryland for Bay Restoration, $41,313.43 from the water bill.
That's
Is that
correct, yes.
Now, lower on that page, there's a $1,456 expenditure that says dues for the fourth quarter for the Fraternal Order Police.
Yes.
Is this a membership we have with the Fraternal Order Police?
It's a membership, we pay for the memberships for our police, but the police have this deducted from their checks.
Oh, okay, I did not know that, that's good to know. And so that's a quarterly payment, so it's 4 times that amount, which would be about $5,000. And
Yes,
then,
But they pay those dues themselves.
okay, I see that.
I've asked that question myself.
Okay, okay. Now, here's the one on page 6 that really caught my attention. We have a list of what looks like streetlights on January 8th, we paid to Potomac Edison. It has addresses, 119 York Street, 5 Warehouse Alley, Street Electric, and then on Whippoorwill Drive, it says that we paid an electric bill on January the 8th, 2016 for $8,474.91. What is happening?
That's the wastewater treatment plant.
Is that the wastewater treatment? Okay, that's good. All right, I wasn't sure. These other looks like, it looks like all these Potomac Edisons are individual streetlights. Are they billed independently?
Well, there's buildings all over the town. There's like, I think like a total of 14 different buildings that include all the traffic lights in the town, and they're on circuits, and there's certain circuits that are attached to certain meters.
So we get a stack of bills for all this
Yes.
separately, and that's why they're separate checks. I didn't know that. That's
I
great.
just signed a bunch of them tonight.
Okay, good. See, there's lots that you do we don't appreciate, and thank you for. I appreciate that. That's good. And then on page 7, it looks like there are 3 credit cards that are issued to town workers. Are there only 3 to town workers? It says here that Clara and Henry and the mayor have a credit card. Anybody else have credit cards with the town?
I'm sure they do. I don't know. I can't tell you how many.
I don't see them being paid this month, so I was trying to figure out who had
Well,
credit.
Well, they may not have had charges this month.
They may not have had charges.
All right.
I
that's
rarely use mine, so it's, I mean.
And then one final question, just on page 8. It says the Conewago Contractors Project 10117 upgrade, we paid $71,884.40. Is that a budget payment? Is that a payment on a larger note, or is that an
That's the-
individual thing that was bought?
That's the ENR upgrade.
Upgrade,
at the-
yeah.
At the sewer wastewater.
Of which we're receiving
So that's a-
partial funding
that's a-
for.
That's a payment on that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I had a hunch that that was the case. That's all. I want to just go over those for my clarity's sake.
All right, any other questions on the accounts payable? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, so carried. West Baltimore street sweeping, I'm not sure what that is all about.
Well, Henry's not here, so. I'm glad I listened. Mayor, since you weren't here, we had a resident, Judith Archie, who is here, who lives on West Baltimore Street, who came before the council on Wednesday to talk about the street sweeping issue as related to parking and parking enforcement and snow and things like that. And I'm sure the council can give you the exact issue, but I think the request was, because parking is limited down there during street sweeping times, to not have the street swept down that way. And again, Henry knows this better than I am, stand-in. So maybe somebody can give specifics, or you can call on Ms. Archie to tell exactly what her concern
Well,
was.
it's my understanding that street sweeping doesn't occur during inclement weather, that if there's street, ice on the street or
Mr.
something
Mayor.
like that, it doesn't happen.
Mr. Mayor, the primary concern is that they're receiving
Okay.
they're parking violations for being on the street after 5 o'clock.
5 a.m.
Street,
By 5 a.m.
correct. And so they receive their tickets around 5:30. The street sweeper generally doesn't come through until much later, but they're saying they don't have places to park otherwise. And so either they would like a narrower time frame.
Part of the problem is that the street sweeping and the street signs are two different issues. So even if the street sweeper is not coming through inclement weather, whatever, from 5 to 10, every third Monday, we still can't park there because the signs are up. So by us parking there, we're breaking the law, so we get tickets. And my understanding was that the signs were supposed to be there for the street sweeper. So, and that's it. Nobody cares if the street sweeper goes through. We just don't see the reason for the signs and the tickets, because it is from 5 a.m. until 10 a.m.
So what, are you suggesting we make it from 6:30 till 10 a.m.?
Well, and it wasn't even about the change of time. It was just get rid of the signs and the tickets. We can understand
Well,
the
the-
metered areas, because that's downtown, and you want to have those areas cleaned. The meters you can control, who parks where, when. But these are all residential homes who, families, cars, need a place to park, and they're home at 5 a.m. They're sleeping still, most of them, and don't, leave until 7, 8 o'clock. But my understanding is the street sweeper needs to come through town earlier for the simple fact that any later, then you've got traffic, and he's creating problems.
Well, the idea is to keep the main streets clean. And-
Right.
And that's why parking is restricted. And I can testify to the fact that I've done my share of contributions to
And I'm sure,
We were told that on Monday.
Yes.
parking, okay?
right.
And in one way, I sympathize.
And like I said, everybody completely understands. It's just that there are some of the homes, whether they be rental properties or not, that don't have adequate parking. We don't have the public parking they do down here. It's just, we've got a distance to walk. A lot of us have small children and very busy lives, and, again, and I know everybody thinks it's real simple to set an alarm on a clock and say every Monday or third Monday it goes off so you can remember to move your car, and it doesn't work that way. We have a hard enough time with our trash every week. So, if they want a street sweep, that's great. We used to hear it coming. Everybody, you would see the neighbors come out of their house, move their cars, and then when he went past, we put them back. Nobody bothers to do that anymore because by 5:30, they've already got a ticket. So what's the point? I was gone before the street sweeper got there and still got the ticket. So he still was able to, sweep that part of the street, but because the sign says from 5 to 10, so, I don't think that we're gonna be missing out on any areas of street sweeping if they take the signs down. It just alleviates a second problem.
So what is your proposed solution then?
If they want to keep street sweeping, have at it. It'll still clean the streets, it'll create that opportunity, but get rid of the signs.
But if
so
your
that
car's
we're
in
not
the way,
getting-
we won't be able to sweep the street.
Easy for you to say. It's not every house down there. I counted about 7. There's about 7 houses. Last month, I think, was an exception because it was a holiday and 2 people had guests in town. So they got ticketed because they were parked in front of the homes. The street sweeper can still get a very large space. I've seen him do a second loop because somebody has missed it, come out and moved their car, and he just went right back down and redid it. You know, and on that same token, it's only once a month. So it's not like he's coming out and cleaning. It looks great for a week, but, you know, I can attest to the fact that my front of my house looks
Maybe we should
Pretty well.
define better the time when the guy's gonna be there. I mean, I always thought that that was too
abroad.
broad of a time. I mean, it's given the benefit to the sweeper
And it
rather
is,
than us.
but you're still gonna run into the same problem that he's gonna wanna do earlier than later. Because he's gotta get this in town before the business is open and whatnot.
Well, typically he's there, he has this done before 8 o'clock.
Typically, yeah, before 8. But it's, you know, usually about 6:15 is when he gets to that part.
So I think having the cars moved is twofold. A, he can get the entire street, and B, there's no risk of damage to the vehicles, because now he has to navigate around people's cars, which is adding time. And you say, oh, he could make a second loop. Well, we're paying him by the hour. So
Well,
when
no,
he makes
and
a
I-
second
that's what I
loop, that's
said.
costing the city money.
He's come through in the middle of the day, is what I'm saying. So I don't think he's on any kind of real fixed schedule. I mean, everybody keeps saying we pay him by the hour, but he's come up the street at 3 o'clock in the afternoon one day and nobody,
Well, I
had
understand,
any
but,
reason for
but
that.
for us to go in here and say, well, he could always make a second loop, if he does a second,
I'm not
that's
saying we
it.
want him to make a second loop. I'm saying
Right.
he does it. He
I
does it
understand.
now. If it's gonna be a problem, we don't want the street sweeping. Because it's really like, again, if you take a shower once a month, you look great for a couple days, but it's really irrelevant the rest of the month. And our side of the, you know, town is not a problem. You know, we're not saying that we need it. Because to be honest, everybody up there kind of respects their areas. We clean up after ourselves. If people dump trash on the ground, we pick it up. You know, he doesn't go on the sidewalks. He doesn't pick up everything else. He gets what's in the street. We're not really concerned with what's in the street because it's not an issue down there. So like Henry said, if he wants to get rid of it, save some money. We're all for it. We love saving money.
My problem is if we do that, in a year, we're gonna have somebody who moves in down there, they're gonna come in saying, why don't we get swept? We're gonna send them to your
You can,
house.
please, send them to me and I will explain why it happens that way. But yeah, I don't foresee that being a problem, and if it is, I will go to their house and I will sweep their gutter myself.
This is a project that is contracted for a period of time, so we're obligated under a particular contract.
Right.
And I would say that we may need to look at narrowing the gap.
Well, and again, we're in the winter. We've got snow. You don't really see them over the next couple of months, but we still see tickets because those signs are out there. So, you know, now you're talking about even less parking because we've got piles of snow.
Well, I suppose we certainly could not enforce the parking signs if the street sweeper wasn't coming. I mean, I don't know why that would be a big deal, but.
I
Well,
just-
we need to
because-
find out at what point do we know they are not coming.
The parking enforcement is done by the police department, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, we can't, you know, if we knew the guy wasn't coming until 12, then yeah, we could put a sign up that says, you know, get this thing out of here by 11:45 or something. But you can't expect the police to go
Follow
in
him down the
15-minute
street.
increments,
Yeah.
you know, half-day increments, yes.
No, that's true. I don't know what the solution is,
Well,
Judy.
the solution is, we don't sweep the street. If they want,
You suggested that, didn't you, on Wednesday, say, it'd be all right with me if we missed a little bit of that.
and as far, you know, as Henry said, hey, we're paying by the hour.
Well, I
That's
guess
less
the
than-
other point of it is that we say, okay, well, we're not gonna sweep the streets anymore. And Judy says, well, I don't care if they have sweep the streets, we don't need to sweep the streets. And 2 doors down from her, they're not sweeping my streets
And
anymore,
you
how
can-
come?
and you can- well, and that's why we said, you know, and watching this guy, if he's coming at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's no traffic. He's just moseying down at 2 miles an hour. It's not like he's flying through the intersections and stuff. He's coming down, he goes around cars that aren't, you know, that are there, and he keeps on going. And then, you know, a block and a half down, he goes around one more car.
A ticketed
He's
car.
not, right, a ticketed car.
A ticketed.
It's not like he's unable to do that. And a lot
I'm-
of, some of the
I'm
people up there have
afraid-
plenty of parking. They can park off the street.
I'm afraid if we take
Mind doing that.
the no parking signs down, then
It's the
the
Wild
problem's
West.
gonna
We'll have
be
more cars parked there anyway.
exacerbated.
Right.
It's gonna be,
Thing is,
everybody's gonna park there.
When he has to go around cars, he's not sweeping the street.
Oh,
I
he,
mean,
I'm sure he is. He
the-
doesn't turn it
the-
off.
The dirt is not in the street. The dirt is at the side of the street where the car's parked over top of.
But see, that's just it. Come down and look. It really isn't. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but we're not, Miami. We don't have a lot of junk down there that he's sweeping up every day. And half the time, he does sweep, and you come back and you look, and there's still, 18 cigarette butts sitting in the road that the kids then pick up and throw in the trash can. I don't know how street sweepers work. I'm assuming there's a vacuum and a little spray. We get better cleaning from the rain. So, I mean, it was that simple. We were simply coming to you to try to find a solution to the problem, and that's where we are. It's a small group of people who just don't have the parking. They don't have anywhere else to park. And, some of them came when there wasn't street sweeping. So, what do you tell them? They didn't know there was street sweeping when they bought it. So if there's not street sweeping when they buy it, does that mean they come to me then and say, well, why aren't we having street sweeping?
Well,
Well, Mayor,
For solutions.
anyone care to make any kind of motion?
Mayor Jim, you had an interesting idea about, narrowing down the times, maybe tailoring them specifically. Do we know if the no parking signs for street, are they uniform? It's all the same set time?
Yeah.
But you mentioned that sometimes the sweeper will come after the designated time.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is,
But they're only getting the tickets during the
but
designated.
it's just that 5-hour period, first thing in the morning.
So if the times were to be tailored, or maybe when the contract comes up for renewal, if we were to more accurately tailor the times, would that be more of a help?
It probably would be a help. Again, you're just looking at the hours being very early in the morning to
Let
cater
me-
to the downtown area.
Let me do this. Let me work on narrowing down the
Okay.
parameters of this thing and see what can be done. I mean, if we can have the guy come between 5:30 and 7:30, then we'll have him there between 5:30 and 7:30 and adjust the parking like that. Or maybe he needs to come between 10 and 12. I mean, then everybody's going to work and we don't have to worry about it.
Right.
So, that could be an option. So let's think about that. And let me just, I'll talk to the city manager and we'll see what we can come up with.
And one of,
But again, I don't know whether we can do anything right now mid-contract. But certainly whatever we can do is we can improve it for the next time.
Mayor, I have one other question. When you get information about things going on in the city, where do you normally get the information from, like reminders about events and things?
Like Facebook or Twitter or any of the above?
So I'm just wondering, maybe there's something we can
maybe
do
word of
to...
mouth. I don't really know when anything's going on until I come up here. I come here and I come to meetings.
I'm just curious, maybe if there's something we as a city could do to, to remind
Right,
residents.
and that's, again, in this day and age, we're being over inundated with information. So it started, now it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other, all these tweets and alerts and notifications and alarms going off and, it's just,
Well, I have it programmed into my cell phone for the third Monday of every month and it
Right.
still doesn't work.
yeah, I know, and that's, it's hard, it's really hard to do. And that's it, and again, it's not a matter of moving the car so much as you just plan on having to leave. He usually just goes to work early because, what do? You go behind the street sweeper and you follow him down until he gets to you. Again, you still can't park in your own parking spot for the next 3 hours. So,
Meanwhile, others in the city would like their street swept every once in a while too.
they can have mine.
There's a man on the back row that has much wisdom. Perhaps he could share some with us.
Yeah, just a question. If there's no off-street parking for these people at 5:30, where's the off-street parking gonna be at 10:30?
Where's the off-street parking?
Yeah, they come
Going to be at 10:30.
There's none.
Well, he said that based on the fact, assuming that people would be gone during those hours.
Right.
Probably some would, but there's gonna be some that don't
Well, and that's
Well,
when hopefully there's
it
traffic
doesn't
for
matter
downtown
which
business.
hours you pick, it's not gonna agree with everybody. I mean, you know, generally speaking, it would solve my problem, because my wife, who happens to get the majority of the tickets, and don't tell her I told you that, oh golly, it's on recording.
It's too late.
We're gonna send her the
Jigs
clip.
up. Well, she doesn't watch this stuff anyway. But no, I'm being funny. She's going, she's going by 7:30. So that would solve my problem if we
Right.
did it after 7:30.
Right.
But, you know, it could vary for everybody else. I mean,
And you're right, it could, and that's it. I know a couple of people down there have talked about, they're trying alternatives, you know.
well, let me,
But,
let me try to, I mean,
Well, and the other
it's
thing
a,
is,
it's
just
a
to add-
problem that's near and dear to my heart, so
Right.
I won't forget it.
just to add insult to injury, if you're 30 days past the amount due, it doubles.
Oh, yeah.
So your $20 ticket then becomes $40, which
That's true.
we've run into also, the month I think my father had his
You
stroke.
know about that too, huh?
Affected.
I've never had to pay that,
So,
but I've been aware of it.
and she's paid it. So yeah, so I'd appreciate you just keeping that in.
All right, let me, I'll continue to pursue that subject. And anybody that has suggestions, I'm open, believe me.
May I toss my hat in the ring?
Sorry?
May I toss my hat in the ring? All right. So with the no parking signs, are they no parking signs because of the residents? Why are they no parking signs?
For the street
For the
sweep.
street sweeping,
So it's only for the street sweep?
yes.
Right.
So short term, could we not suspend street sweeping in that area? And then long term, and I emphasize long term, think about developing extra parking down in that end, and then bring the street sweeper back.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
why.
to me, that makes sense.
And
It
we
saves a
could
lot
do
of-
just about anything, it's just whether that's a logical
It
process
seems
to go
logical
through.
to me. I mean, they're happy with or without, probably happier without the street sweeper, so suspend it, emphasis on suspend, and then think long-term about developing parking,
Well,
so that when you want to bring the street sweeper back for when 2 years later or 4 years later, that person moves down and says, why isn't my street being swept? You can conveniently say, oh, well, we're developing the parking for you to move your car so that the street can be.
Well, I would venture to say, I think that most people have off-street parking.
Well, they're saying that they don't have much, and certainly not as much as people over here do. It's a lack of being able to move your car. It's inconvenient. And, you
Well,
know,
that's the key. It's inconvenient. It's not that there's a complete lack, it's inconvenient.
right.
And that's the point. I mean, to build a random parking lot that doesn't service a park, it doesn't service a business, it serves no other purpose but for once a month for 5 hours for residents to not have their cars on the street.
It doesn't have to be that way. It could be convenient for a different purpose.
Well, there is parking available on Memorial Drive and the church parking lots and the Westview Drive.
And
There's
you
only a
said that the
block from
street
the
sweeper
street.
costs the city money, right? So that's tax dollars.
Of course.
Right, so she's paying those tax dollars, right? So if she's declining by rights, does not she have some sort of small way of saying, no, I don't feel like we deserve
No,
this?
again, the tax dollars are used for the common good. I mean, I
Right.
don't have any kids in
But if the
school.
common good can be bordered at that end of town, could it not?
We still have people coming through town who are not gonna see, who are gonna be presented first look of an unswept, unkept street.
And she's saying the filth isn't all that bad.
I understand what she's saying.
But that's what we're gonna investigate.
All right, well, I thought I'd, again, toss my hat in the ring. All right.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on street sweeping?
I have a parking issue I'd like to bring up. I had said when I first got elected to the council that the lot next to the building here, that the staff should do what I did this evening. I parked in the lot in the back and walked by the fire company. Got a snowflake in my eye as I walked down here. Isn't the town employees supposed to park in the back lot so that merchants can have access to customers parking in this lot next to this building where the ice cream sign is? Isn't that the policy of the town?
The policy is that at least half the lot is reserved for general parking. The other half is reserved for certain employees who need to park in the town lot.
I see
people
some
who have
town
bank
employee trucks
deposits
in and
to
out
take,
because there's business.
people who are in and out all the time, and people who are older and perhaps can't take the walk as much as other people can. But there's, in any given day, there's probably 5 or 6 city employees that park in that lot.
Okay, it's not in excess of that. Yeah, Manager Shoemaker always would encourage folks to park in the back, because they spend all day.
Well, I mean, it's, I agree. I mean, there's there should be some exceptions to that, but I think the majority of the employees should park in the back, and they really do. At the situation that has improved itself since we've included offices at the annex across the street, those employees are parking over there, of course. And again, I don't know how many parking places are there, but there's probably 24, and there's probably, at any given time, 6 employees parked in that lot.
When my travels over the Christmas holiday, it came up.
There's always room, I'll put it that way.
There is. There's always spaces available in that parking lot. Always.
All right, anybody have any further questions on parking? Next, we have the partial release of the Meadowbrook line of
Are we
credit.
still under new business? I have a new business item.
We're on the next
We
item.
haven't finished yet. We'll come to a new business in a minute. Additional new business. Partial release of Meadowbrook letter of credit. Anyone care to make a motion? Are we ready to act on that?
I move that we approve that.
Well, wait a minute, I'd like to know more.
Jay, can you
Okay,
speak to that?
so as you know, the Meadowbrook development started. They needed to post a $1.65 million letter of credit to secure the public improvements that they were going to do out there. And as customary, they submit draws. These aren't draws on like a line of credit, meaning they're not draws where they pay the contractor. They're just reduction in the surety amounts that we are secured by after they pay a contractor and after certain work is performed. So they submitted their first reduction request, and you have the 2 sheets there, white pine stationery in front of you. One actually is carried over to the other, but the detail is there if you're interested in it. The second one that you're looking at, it says total due $103,017. You actually need to add the 2 amounts above it, the $202,888 and the $99,863 to get $302,743. That's the number, $302,743. That would be the reduction from the letter of credit from 1.6 million less that amount. The Public Works Department, and as I told you on Wednesday, we got this request on Monday last week, and we weren't sure we were going to be able to verify, because the Public Works Department and the engineers verify that this is done. They actually did work to do this. They wanted to show that they were responsive in getting this out, so they met on Thursday. And the Public Works Department said, yeah, this is verifiable. So that's why it's on your agenda. If you move to reduce that, a letter to the surety will be sent to reduce that amount.
Yeah, and these are amounts that they paid in to bond the project.
Right.
They're receiving that money as return from part of that bond,
Their
reduction of that.
their surety amount will be reduced.
That's correct. I made a motion, we go ahead and do that for the portion that you discussed on Wednesday.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. So carried. Now, is there any new business?
I have one item here. I received a copy of this September 30th letter to the Maryland Cannabis Commission. It says, "To whom I am concerned, I'm writing this letter on behalf of the mayor and city council of Taneytown to offer the city's support of Cannabis MD LLC's application to obtain a grower processor license from the Maryland Cannabis Commission for their planned facility in the city of Taneytown, which is up here by FlowServe." This letter, I received a copy of this letter and discussed it before. I wanted to say that I've written my own letter, because this letter from Henry Hine does not represent me. I do not support the growing of that. This is my letter that I sent to the Cannabis Commission saying we do not want a growing facility in Taneytown, and encouraging everyone in the town to send such a letter to that. I'd like to make a motion again after over the Christmas holiday. I got this book by William Bennett on why the rush to legalize marijuana is harming America. I think we've had several months to discuss this issue and bring up lots of citizen complaints and concerns about cannabis and the growing of it. We're going to act on a zoning ordinance about these distribution centers. We know for a fact from the Cannabis Commission, Mr. Mayor, that they did not act on this. And now this letter still sits down there saying the town wants this facility. I'd like to make a motion that we change our position and oppose the facility and revoke this
I
letter
think
from
that
September
motion's
28th.
been made at past meetings, I believe, and it was.
Well, we've had a lot of time to study this. We've heard from a lot of citizens, and I think it's been really clear the danger of having a growing facility in the town. I'm not in favor of it. At the promotions committee on Thursday, we talked about image for the town, and I don't want to have the image of the town as the pot growing facility. This facility, from the information we were given, has 43 employees to grow marijuana by the truckload, and that's not medical marijuana. And we certainly don't want that in Taneytown, and we don't want the image of the grower and pusher of marijuana of Carroll County. And I'd like to see the town reverse the position on it. I think everybody's had a chance to think about it over the Christmas holiday. And I'd like to make a motion that the town rescind this letter from September the 30th and send a letter saying that we have concerns about that, removed from the package of growing facilities. We don't want the growing facility in Taneytown nor in Carroll County.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, this is highly inappropriate. We've already disposed of this issue at least twice. This needs to be put to rest.
Don, you are bringing this up. This is legalized. We're not talking about legalizing. And besides, let me ask you a question.
How much marijuana can 43
Well,
employees grow
Let me
in
ask
a
you a
given year?
question, okay? 2 weeks ago or so, the state legislature had hearings to override Governor Hogan's veto on the decriminalization of
I'm aware of that.
paraphernalia.
It's a dark day for Maryland.
Were you down there to present your opinion to the legislature on overriding that veto? Because they overrode the veto. I don't know if you know it or not, but they did it,
I know they
okay?
did that.
So it's now no longer a criminal offense to have marijuana paraphernalia in the state of Maryland. It's a civil offense, all right? Medical marijuana is legal. If you have less than 10 grams of marijuana, not medical, no prescription for it, then it's a civil offense, all right? It's no longer a criminal offense. That was passed 2 years ago. You know, there's a big dog out here, okay? It's called the legislative process in the state of Maryland. The dog is, the head of the dog is the state legislature. They're the ones that keep biting us on legalizing marijuana. And you keep jumping on the tail, which is us.
No, this is really clear.
We're the tail, we
Mr.
don't
Mayor,
have any choice.
this letter is saying the official position of the mayor and the city council is that they support this application that's going to be voted on in the next couple months.
Because it fits
Because
within the zoning
I have
regulations
provided
of the
data in
city.
previous meetings, Mr. Mayor, about what has happened at the Cannabis Commission.
I
They were
think this-
supposed to have a deadline.
I think this discussion is out of order. I agree with,
Well, there's a motion and a second on the table, and I call a question. I think that the people that voted for this, Councilman Foster and Zampetti and Wance, are incorrect about what's in the best interest of Carroll County, and they ought to have a
but
chance to
you've said that
recant.
over and over again. Every month since that vote, you've made that point. And every month since that vote, we've rejected your opinion.
We
How long will this
have
have to
a
go
lot more
on?
data now than we had before about the dangers of this.
How long will this go on?
Mr. Mayor,
We don't have anything to do with whether it's legal or not legal. We can only enforce the laws of the state.
This is not about enforcing the laws, this is about the position of the city council of Taneytown.
All right, let's call for the question.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a parliamentary inquiry to Jay regarding this. Can we dispose of this in another way? Because this is outrageous. We've listened to this for 5 months nonstop.
Well, I was looking it up in the book that typically when you're dealing with an ordinance or a resolution, okay, which is not, but typically when you're dealing with that, if you want to make a motion to reconsider, which is what this is, reconsider a vote that's already done, the motion has to be made by the prevailing party, the prevailing side, and it has to be done within the same session, which means the same night as far as we're concerned, and then you can make a motion to reconsider. So the only other way to deal with this is a new motion, and you can deal with it as a new motion, and as it can continue this way. So there is no parliamentary ban on
Right.
that.
Thank you.
There's a lot of data about the harm that comes from this quantity of marijuana being grown and distributed in the state of Maryland.
Okay, well,
There's a lot of grave concerns about it.
we aren't equipped to deal with that, Don. We're gonna have to settle this matter.
Well,
I'm
I'm
not gonna
just
stay
asking-
here. I'm not gonna discuss this anymore. This has been discussed ad nauseum for the last 5 months.
Well, it's not.
And I'm done with
I
it.
can't believe you haven't sent letters to say we don't
Send
want
your
to grow
letter.
this.
Good for you. I'm glad you sent your letter. And I encourage you, the next time there's a hearing in Annapolis concerning this, you should go down there and tell them how you feel.
Well, I've done a lot of that. I spoke to Senator Anthony Muse and Senator Ed Grange about this issue. Those are the two influential Democrats that voted on this. So I did do that, Angelo. So we have a motion second. We'd like to call the question on that. We want to rescind this letter and send a letter, a cautionary letter, about approving any growing facility.
All in favor of rescinding the letter and sending another letter discouraging the development, say aye.
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 And opposed?
Aye.
The nays have it, so we will continue to move forward. Any other new business to
And
come
I just
before?
hope your letter doesn't imply that you're writing on behalf of the city council.
No, it says I'm on the city council. I know that some people are unhappy that I got elected on the city council, but I write in here, the first you should know that Joe Vigliotti and I served on the council, and we are well informed about the proposal and stand solidly against you approving the use of this building in question which was a manufacturing facility and privately owned in our corporate limits. The impression is given in the stunning letter written on September 30th. It says here that we support this, but our conversations with the town are clear that we oppose approving the application that went in from Cannabis MD LLC. So that's some of the contents of that letter, and this is public. I put this on Facebook so
I
people
don't-
read.
Facebook is, did Joe
All right.
sign this?
No, I did not sign
No,
that.
this is
You
from the-
agree with his name in it? With your name in there?
Stating that I oppose the growing
Or did
facility.
he do
being-
it without your knowledge?
I did not know that my name was in that, but I don't have a problem with it because I do oppose the
Okay, I'm
facility,
just-
so.
Okay. He's speaking for you and you agree.
On this issue, yes.
It's fine.
All right, any other new business? All right, let's take a minute and do council reports. I don't think we did any council reports on Wednesday. Joe, what do you have to say for us tonight?
Two very brief things. I want to congratulate the Department of Public Works and our police department on all the work that they did during the last snowstorm. I've heard nothing but good things about the work that they did, and I certainly wish them luck over the next couple of days because it seems like we're going to get hit with something again. And the other thing I want to point out is that Emily Graham and her husband are here, and she's the owner and operator of the Red Door Boutique. It's one of our newer stores, and I certainly recommend everybody going to check that place out. My sister keeps trying to steal that pillow that I bought from you with the United States map on it. I'll have to bring her over. That's it.
The parking lot, may I ask a question? The parking lot that's there across from No Anchovies, is that a public parking lot or does that belong to a private party on West Baltimore Street, near the Red Door?
That is directly across from No Anchovies belongs to another building.
Check.
Yeah, but can I
The
come
old
in there and park? and go to Red
They've
Door?
got lots on either side.
I've done that before, I just didn't know whether that was part of your parking or not.
The Red Door, we own the entire parking lot there that faces Church Street. So like if you're at the front door of the Red Door and you're looking at the church, that parking lot.
So if you turn up by Holy
Private property.
Trinity,
It's not for public at all.
if you turn up by
Church
Holy
Street.
Trinity, you can turn in there to your parking lot.
Yes,
Okay, well, that's important for people to know.
Brad, do you have anything for us?
Just repeating what I said on Wednesday regarding the cannabis zoning, Councilman Vigliotti and I, along with Henry and Jay and others, made some good progress in coming up with terms for dispensaries for medicinal cannabis, and that's going to go to the Planning Commission hopefully later this month, and we might see it here March or April for our approval then.
Very good, very good. Diane?
Nothing.
Don, do you have anything for us?
I just wanted to ask a question regarding snow removal. How are we doing on budget items for snow removal? I thought Henry would bring it up and ask for a supplemental request. I don't know whether we've adequately budgeted. If we have another snowstorm coming, are we close to over budget? Where we are on that?
Oh,
Did you
yes.
review that?
We're very close to over budget. I expect we are considerably over budget, as a matter of fact. The good news is that there's opportunity for us to take advantage of some federal money and some state money for this. So we're investigating that, and we've been requested to provide documentation for costs, and I don't know how much, if anything, we're gonna get, but we're in the process of filing.
I got a copy of an emergency declaration that occurred. So is that how we apply for that? Under
Yes.
the emergency setting?
That's first step.
Well, that's good. I just wanted, I expect that to come up at recent meetings, but it has not, so.
Now, you know, again, if we are denied or don't get the anticipated amount of money or the necessary amount of money, that we will have to file for a budget.
Yeah, I too would like to thank you for the front-end loader work that was done in my neighborhood. And a lot of people have said that good work was done.
Well,
to push back
there was
costs.
a
We
lot of
appreciate
work done and a lot of money spent, but it's part of service.
that. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Angela?
Well, I understand the police during the event answered a number of medical calls and that type of thing, and one young lady, 16 years old, stuck in the snow. And they managed to get her out and get the car home safely.
Oh,
to
good.
the,
I heard,
Many thanks of the girl's mother.
That's good work too.
Great.
I heard a lot of praise and some complaints, not a lot of complaints, but there was probably a handful of folks that were upset with some of the things we did. But I think it was only a handful, and the fact of all the snow we had a real success. My one that was particularly memorable was I had a call from a lady that I know, and was very upset that she had just finished shoveling her walk, and we just happened to come and dump the snow back on it. So, and she wasn't going to pay the fine to get it shoveled back off. And I said, "That's fine. We'll take care of that," and we did. So, but with that amount of snow, you have to do what you got to do when you got to do it. Simple as that. Just a few comments from me. I was away last week, toward the end of the week, attending the Maryland Association. Mayor's Association meeting in Annapolis, and during that time we spent a day meeting with various staff people throughout the state and getting an update on the state of the state. It happened to be the day after the State of the State address, and it was quite good to be there during that time because there was a lot of positive feelings. I think the State of the State message from Governor Hogan went over very well. If you all had an opportunity to look at it, I can't help but think that you came away with a positive feeling. I know I did. And on Thursday evening, we had the opportunity to go to Government House and visit one-on-one with the governor and his family, and they were gracious hosts, and was a great opportunity to get to know the governor a little better and be able to talk with him one-on-one. Some very positive conversations. Our governor is, I really believe, truly committed to working with everyone and getting everything accomplished. The message that was stated over and over again was the fact that when he looked to fund projects, when he looked to take care of issues, he didn't single out a particular jurisdiction, but involved all jurisdictions. His approach is that the need for one jurisdiction does not outweigh another jurisdiction simply because of the number of votes that one might be able to get from a particular jurisdiction. So I thought that was very positive. Again, a very powerful meeting. The Friday meeting we spent, the mayors got together and had kind of a press conference where we restated our primary legislative goal, and that is the restoration of the highway user revenues that were taken away from us back in 2009. And the governor has planned in his budget to increase those revenues at the rate of about 2.5% per year for the next 5 years until we receive parity. And that's good, but what MML, what the Maryland Municipal League has done is introduced 2 bills that will actually restore the formula to its original level and allow us to fund the road repairs in the way that we had traditionally, in a predictable way, that we've been traditionally accustomed to for the last 50-plus years. If you care to follow this legislation, it is, I have the Senate bills right here, hold on a minute. It's House Bill 723 and Senate Bill 585. These were introduced last week and have a wide bit of support, many co-sponsors, both Democrat and Republican, and we hope that these bills will move forward, that the atmosphere seems to be in our favor. So if there's anything you can do to encourage the movement on these bills, then please do, as you're talking to various legislatures throughout the state. House Bill 723, Senate Bill 585. And again, that restores a particular formula that will allow us to fund the HURs that I mentioned, are highway user revenues, and they're, for those who don't understand government talk or cryptic talk like that. But in past years, highway user revenues are returned by the state to the municipalities and to the counties with a formula based on the amount of tax that was collected and the road miles within that community. And it was a formula that, again, that worked fine for 57 years or so. And in order to help overcome some of the deficits in the budget in 2009, the administration pulled those funds, and we've been fighting ever since to get them back. And they're what we use to, these are earmarked for street repairs. We can't use them for anything else, street-related items. So this is something we've desperately needed, and we're making progress in that regard. It's been our #1 legislative priority since it happened, and we've got a very receptive governor, and it looks like we've got a legislature that is also, we've got their ear too, I'll put it that way. So that's kind of the summary of the mayor's conference. It was a very good session. We heard from Senate President Miller and Mike Bush from the leader of the House, and also our former Senator David Brinkley, our budget secretary, and all their remarks were taken to heart. So very productive couple days, or day and a half or so, down in Annapolis last week. Now I'd like to open it up to anyone else that might have something to say. Carl.
Carl Lieball, you all know me. A question here, and this is just a question. This business about this campaign finance, you're going to take that up at the
retreat.
At the retreat, and the retreat is open to everyone, yes. Correct? Okay. I need to clarify something in my mind. 3 times I ran for city council, and I didn't spend more than $200. Why we suddenly need a 10-page document is beyond me, but apparently I never had a dogma of any kind to sell. The business about the spouse, please answer this question. A candidate can get any amount of money from a spouse, and we have no regulations as to where that money is coming from?
Correct, because it's not regulated before the spouse gets it, correct?
I I can see this being a real problem.
And that's why I raised that
Yeah.
concern on Wednesday, is that that is a giant loophole that's just waiting. to
It's,
be
it's
taken
horrible,
advantage of.
because you know exactly, once upon a time, we would not have had this problem, but we're gonna have it now. You've got to find a way to address that.
Yeah,
Now, that makes
Yes.
pretty good sense.
Yeah, yeah, because we know where we're going. Thank you.
All right, Carl. Anyone else? Judy?
Is anybody ever gonna fix that crosswalk?
I hate to ask you to come up, but you don't get on the video unless you come up.
Maybe that's the point. The crosswalk sign up on the corner, it's been like that for months. It's facing towards the pole.
What is?
The crosswalk sign.
Oh, yes, I've noticed that myself.
Well, and we've all noticed it, but has anybody ever said anything to anybody?
I will make sure State Highway gets notified of that tomorrow.
And I guess just second, as a further note, I take offense a little bit to you calling it an inconvenience. I mean, we're talking about a bunch of people that had to live through streetscape and moved in when there was no street sweeping.
Right.
They didn't know when they moved in that there was going to be street sweeping. I don't think it's an inconvenience. I think it's more about a courtesy to these people that live on your main street and work very hard, to be a part of this town. Most of the people down there are very involved in the town. Lisa Crawford, unfortunately, has fallen on some medical issues and may have to leave. But I just find that very offensive that you said that.
Oh, that was a point to what was being said then.
Well, and I understand.
I
but it's
completely
not
understand
about
where
being
you're coming from.
Inconvenient, because trust me when I tell you, there's plenty of things in this town that are inconvenient
I agree with you.
that I could witch about. So, just so you know.
Marvin?
My comments have nothing to do with official business Taneytown, just a snow story, if you will. A number of years
Always
ago,
good, like a good snowstorm.
a good friend of mine, some of you know him, he's gone now, Russell Mummert.
Yeah, I'm around.
During this snowstorm, he used his snow blower to blow a number of his neighbors' sidewalks clear. And the next day, for whatever reason, he left town. And when he was gone, the snowplow pushed the snow on his sidewalk. And when he come home, he had a ticket from the town for not removing the snow off his sidewalk. I thought that was he had quite a laugh about that. And another thing, you might have another letter to write, because I heard on TV there's a movement on some people to get the legislature to make regulations giving heroin addicts a small dose of heroin in order to keep them from overdoses. So that's in the wind on the part of some people.
Did we issue any citations to folks for not removing their snow? You know that?
I'm not sure, but I know that we've been lenient and
I know, it was a great
extenuating
note
circumstances
from
have
Jim
prevailed.
Wyprick on that issue about being lenient. This is an unusual storm in 2016.
Well,
I
I
appreciate his
wrote,
work in being considerate.
I personally directed staff to take it easy. I'll put it that way.
I appreciate that, and so do others.
Anyone else? Well, if there's no other,
Robin.
I'm sorry, Robin. No, I didn't see your hand, but you're certainly welcome to say.
Robin Frazier, 142 Bentley Street. I had a couple questions. On the financial disclosure, the ethics report, what is the purpose of the ethics, the financial disclosure? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I just want you to.
To comply with the state?
Because the state law says we have to.
But I mean, what is the purpose of having an ethics financial disclosure?
My opinion on it, or the state, I mean, you need to talk to the people that passed it. My opinion is this is a way that, I guess they say, when you disclose these things out, people can, in retrospect, find out if you had a conflict. It doesn't make any sense because it doesn't prevent you from doing it, and there's no investigation to find out whether you actually filled it out correctly. So the purpose is to comply with state law.
Right, and I would say that the purpose is to see if you have any conflicts, and you own something, you're invested in something, that when you're making a decision as an elected official, it would maybe be a question of ethics, or whether you should be voting on that or not. And so I just think we should keep that in mind as we do our work on this, because it shouldn't be a tool to keep people from running for office, or, you know, to disqualify somebody. As a matter of fact, if someone is in violation of something on their financial has it ever been used to remove someone from office?
The requirement just happened 2 years ago, and the practical issue that you're talking about is that if you fail to put something down, because it could become a conflict later, that's not a violation. If you just say, I'm not going to fill it out, or I'm not going to give you the information, then you're in violation of the ethics law, and therefore you can't hold office. I mean, that's how that goes through. For example, a lot of people said, I'm not filling this out, then you can't run for office.
And the state law says that.
The state law
That's
says
the
you have
new
to.
law with the new disclosure form.
Right.
Because we always filled out a disclosure form.
Right, and the new
But that is
disclosure
part of the
form
law.
is more invasive because it requires you to put more things down, specific things. The way it used to be, which makes sense, is you disclose if you have a conflict of interest. Here's my conflict. I own this house, and you're talking about regulating rental.
Or you
houses.
ask,
Right.
is this a
So I
conflict?
put that down. The new law says, no, you're going to list everything you have, regardless of whether it's regulated by the town.
Right,
If
got
you
your
own a
point.
timeshare in Florida, you're putting it down there. How's that relevant? Well, that's the way the law is.
And at the level, we had lots of discussion about it. And I'm not even sure they've yet
Finalized.
finalized what they want to do, because there's a lot of things in there that were ridiculous. Even, you know, putting things what your brother and your sister and your mother and father
Right.
held, what properties on it, and how do I know? It's none of my business, you know.
That's it. So that's the requirement and the issue that you have is this is regulated locally, which we're fortunate, because these forms are Taneytown forms. And the theory would be if you don't comply with this, then the state could always come in and say, fine, we'll regulate this, which would be much worse than if we regulated ourselves.
Okay, well, I didn't realize that the new state law, if you didn't fill it out,
Because it says to be a
couldn't be
candidate, you must fill these forms out, elected officials and candidates. So therefore, if you don't fill them out, and so that's black and white, so what's the gray? You don't fill them out right.
Right.
So, I mean, and that's where we are parsing it down to say we don't want to have to fool with this. It would be great if it was yes or no, and you filled them out or you didn't, but that's the problem.
Gotcha. Okay. And the other thing is on the treasurer's reports or financial reports of candidates. And, you know, when Don filed to run for council, we thought it was odd that you didn't have to have a treasurer and give some kind of accounting of what you were doing, or else fill the affidavit out that said you were going to spend less than something. I think it's great to have a financial report because it's, in my opinion, it's always been used to show who supports you. And if you have a lot of people that are sending you money, that means those people support you. If you have an organization that sends you money, that means that organization and the values that it, you know, represents are behind you. So, for example, with Joe Vigliotti, because that would be one of the campaigns where we were involved. You know, Tri-District Republican Club supported Joe Vigliotti. Why? Because the special interest that they represent are less government and more freedom, and we found Joe Vigliotti to be a less government, more freedom guy. Jack Ames, Right to Life, supported Joe Vigliotti because Joe Vigliotti is believes in the right to life. So I think it's great to have a financial report that shows that who supports you and gives you the opportunity to show that a lot of citizens support me and these organizations with these values support me. So that's good. We just we need to be careful not to have things in there that would keep people, be so onerous that it keeps people from running, because we want anyone to be able to run. whether they're raising money or using their own money. So I'm glad you're gonna, I didn't know the retreat was gonna be open, but I'm glad to hear that, even though,
Well, I think that anytime the council meets, unless it's to discuss personnel and real estate issues primarily, we have open meetings. I'm not sure there's going to be time for much public intercourse, I'll put it that way. Most of the discussions could be done among council and staff, and it's probably going to be more of an observation rather than a participation time, that's all.
well, that's okay. It's good to hear what you're thinking and why,
Right.
and then I can comment later. That's on February 27th, right?
Yep,
That'll be my birthday present.
early in the morning, too.
All right, thanks a lot.
One thing about getting support from the Republican Club or the Right to Life and any organization like that, you have to understand how many of these people belong to these groups or citizens of Taneytown. There's quite a few of them belong to these groups that are not citizens of Taneytown, and this is a nonpartisan election when we have it, and I don't want anybody from out of town having an influence on how my tax money's spent, whether they belong to the Republican Club or Right to Life or whatever organization. So it's good to know who they are.
Thank you, Marvin, and again, one of the most attractive things about municipal government is that they are nonpartisan, for the most part. And we need to fight tooth and nail to maintain that nonpartisan idea and atmosphere, no matter what we do and how we do it, because all our citizens are the product of our end result. Our work, our service is for them, regardless of political affiliation. So that's the main thing. Anyone else? One more, if anybody has anything. All right, before I adjourn council, I have returned the Got a Groove book. If anyone would be care to read that, I'll pass it on. Barbara gave it to me today. She had it rebound for us. It was coming apart. It was so dog-eared. But if anybody would care to read that, it's available.
I finished reading this book, and I'd like to lend it to any of the folks that voted. This really reveals from Surgeon General the grave concerns about going forward with growing marijuana that's allegedly medical marijuana, but in quantities for mass consumption.
I've got
So
many
I've lent this
concerns,
out
I'll
to
tell
any
you
member
that.
of the council that wants to read it.
I move for adjournment.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. So
Aye.
opposed, like sign. Thank you all. Stay warm and safe.
Read this book.
They gave me a copy. You're pointing up to the...
Good summary of the zoning during
I keep telling you that. There is no way in the world I would ever back legalized marijuana.